Billy Bush. I'm a producer, engineer, and mixer out here in LA. And I'm going to walk you through a preset I did for Wave's StudioRack. It's one that I crafted specifically for snares, but it can really be used for any type of percussive instrument, whether it's claps, clicks, finger clicks, pops, anything that's got a transient that really you want to be able to control how it sits in a mix. So this is kind of like, the Swiss Army knife of everything I really kind of go for when I'm working on a snare drum, all in one package. What I've got here is I've got a track. It's a very sort of moody track where the snare does a bunch of different things, where there's some side stick, there's places where they hit the snare, and I was looking for a plugin that I could use to kind of craft the snare to fit into the track a little bit better. For me, it's about trying to figure out how to quickly get a sound to fit into the mix in a way where I'm like, oh, okay, that actually sounds really special. When I've got this bypass, it sounds fine, but when I add the plugin in, it brings out all the characters of that snare, which I really want to hear, and make it be something that's a little bit of ear candy to it without being overtly obvious and changing it in any way. I've got a gate. Now, the gate I use is the gate that is in the CLA Mix-Up Lite, just because the SSL gate is great for still retaining the transient, understanding like what is real musical information and what's noise. And as you turn the gate up, the gates on CLA Mix-Up, there's a couple of changes that happen. Number one, it's the threshold, but also the range. If it's down all the way, it's completely bypassed. It's not doing anything. But the more you crank it up, the tighter it's going to get. So if you have something that's got a lot of bleed going through, once you get up into these higher registers, it's going to get rid of most of that stuff, but still retain the transient. Then the next thing I do is I look for any tonal shaping elements, which, do I need to, does the snare or the clap, is it kind of thin? Does it need some weight to it? So I've got a macro called weight. I love the EQ on the SSL. It's fantastic, but I also really love the sound of the Abbey Road RS56. It's just a beautiful sounding EQ on anything. So for the weight, I'm doing two things. I'm turning up both the CLA mix-up in a couple of different places, mostly the low-mid frequency. I'm just adding a little bit of gain and a little bit of the low shelf at around 100. But it's the frequencies I pick on the SSL, which I like for adding some thickness to something. But at the same time, it's also turning up the low ends in a very gentle way on the RS56. It's also cutting it. So the weight when it's at 12 o'clock isn't doing anything, but you can remove any of the mud by going counterclockwise, or you can add some more weight to it if it's too thin by going clockwise. So it's sort of a bidirectional EQ setting. So you can cut or you can boost. And the next thing would be the top end, the bite of it, sort of like how to get it to cut through. The bite knob is also a bidirectional knob. As you crank it up, it adds from the RS56 the nice sort of top end 5K sort of range. But it's also going down here to this parallel split, which is adding a multi-band split with some of my favorite saturators. So what this is doing is it's really bringing out the transient and this sort of distorting the top end of whatever it is in a subtle way. And it's all happening in parallel. So everything from 2300 cycles and up is getting distorted by a combination of the Abbey Road saturator. Then it's getting compressed by the SSL compressor, going into the lovely berserk distortion, and then finally smack attack. So the bite knob not only is turning up 5K on the RS56, but it's bringing the level of this multiband split up to add a little bit more aggression. So this is with the RS56 EQ engaged, but without the parallel distortion. For me to do that without this plugin requires so much routing and so much work. The next thing I'm going for when I'm dealing with transients is the actual attack of the transient. When we talk about transients, it seems like it's just like, oh, the initial hit, but that initial hit has got so many elements of how fast does it happen, how fast does it decay, how long is it transient. One of the great tools I found for dealing with the length of transients is the smack attack. So with the smack attack, the attack is also a bidirectional thing. You can go way down on the attack on it, way up on the attack to really kind of get things to pop out. If you have something that's kind of mic'd far away and you just need it to get the initial attack so your ear gets pulled to it, you can add a lot of attack to it. And basically this just controls the attack. The length macro over here is doing the same thing, but for the sustain. It's very short. And then the next thing I do is decide whether or not it's going to need any compression. So the smack knob is doing a couple of different things. We've got a parallel split here, which has got a dry channel, and then it's got two different types of compressors. I really love the DBX 160. I think Waves has done an amazing job of modeling one of my favorite hardware compressors of all time. And then, of course, there is the limiter we all know and love, the L1, which is a bit of magic in a box. So the smack knob, for me, it brings up both of those. For me, what I like about it is when you just take a little bit of the transient off. So it's knocking it down about 1 dB or so. But the L1, it does a great job of bringing everything into your face. When you bring the smack knob up, it's basically just bringing those up in parallel. One of them is doing like a very fast sort of like squashing everything down and really obliterating it. And the DBX 160 is doing a much more gentle sort of compression. It's letting the transient slide through, but the L1 is really catching it. When you turn up that knob, it immediately just brings whatever that percussive element is kind of straight up into your face. For fun, I added a couple of different things. I've got two different reverbs. I've got a kind of a short room, and then I've got a longer room. Again, it's a bidirectional knob. And if you go to the right, it adds the longer. And then the other knob I've got here is called dub, which is basically tempo-based delay for weird effects. So you can have fun with that. That one, as you turn it up, just sort of changes whether the delay is happening forward or reverse, the speed of the delay, but it's happening always in a tempo-based sort of thing. StudioRack has been one of my favorite Waves plugins since it first came out, simply because I do like these toolkits that you can build to where you can expedite your workflow. One of the other things I really love about StudioRack is that I can use all the presets I make in StudioRack regardless of whatever DAW I'm using. So if I'm here at the studio using the HDX system, I save my presets, they go to my Dropbox folder, they're immediately available for me when I'm home using Logic. So to have something that works across all platforms to me is absolutely priceless.